It's called About a Boy, but I suppose there are probably two boys, really. The original idea was that I thought of this guy who invents a child so that he can meet single mothers. So he invents a child and goes to a single parent group, and that was the initial germ of the idea.
I have a 2-year-old, Ned. You know, he's a very good little boy, very brave. They've got amazing resources, don't they? Mm-hmm. Just the other day I was thinking about my ex, and he came crawling up and put his little pudgy arms around my neck, and he said, "You hang in there, Dad."
The source of the film is a book called Appropriately About a Boy by Nick Hornby, which came out in England about 7 years ago and was a huge hit there and did very well here. Nick Hornby also wrote High Fidelity and most recently How to Be Good. And he kind of addresses man's fate, especially 30-something man's fate in the modern world.
I've always loved Nick Hornby. He gets London life so right and is so funny about it, and particularly male, bachelor, single London life, which I know extremely well. So I thought this is right up my alley. And, you know, on top of that, it's actually quite moving, and I've never really done moving before.
Alone, bad, friend, good.
I suppose the kind of comedy that I'm drawn to, I don't want it to be purely farcical, and I want it rooted in something. And I think after High Fidelity, I wanted to try and push that a little bit harder, the idea that you could write a comedy about, or which includes people who are having a hard time.
When we first read the book, it felt, a lot of the scenes in the book felt like they were from a classic comedy. So a lot of stuff we kept in, but then the last third of the movie is an invention of ours that we worked out and then sort of worked on with Hugh Grant, our real sort of partner in terms of someone to bounce our writing off and to get ideas for writing from. So we knew that when we started shooting, we were on the same page, basically.
Yeah, well, he's very special, very, very special. Sometimes I think, you know, he's the one taking care of me, teaching me the ways of the world.
We had wanted to make something more in the vein of older filmmakers that we've liked, like Billy Wilder, for instance, who's a tremendous influence on our doing this movie, just because of the mixture of cynicism and hope at the same time. We essentially harassed the producers, Jane Rosenthal and Robert De Niro, endlessly.
Well, I think at first Jane didn't really get why the hell the guys who directed American Pie should direct this movie. I mean, aside from that, it's a comedy, but on the surface it appears like a really different kind of comedy. And Hugh was equally horrified, as was Nick Hornby.
I think, probably like a lot of people of my generation, I did think, oh my God. Partly because I'd never seen American Pie.
I adored American Pie, but I mean, I really did, but I thought that's completely wrong. Our film's funny, but it's not quite as determinedly lowbrow funny as American Pie. But then you meet them, and actually, of course, they're these incredibly learned, scholarly, intelligent guys.
One of them thinks of an idea, and then the other one will say, yeah, right, then let's try that. And then they get like double the ideas, and, well, it helps because then if they think something's a bit not very good, then they'll say, and the other one might say, well, we can try it. And they don't seem to really shout at each other at all and argue because, well, if they did, nobody ever sees them doing it, so.
I think of all the American filmmakers I've ever met, the most erudite, I mean, shockingly erudite. The bastards read books on the set. I've never seen that. While the set's being lit, you know, they're reading quite heavy tomes about the decline of the British Empire or something.
Sometimes you catch us holding them upside down, and that's a little embarrassing, but...
They just happen to have 6-year-old sense of humours. And I think it's a very good combination for this material. It is kind of about... I mean, Nick Hornby is a clever man with a childish sense of humour in a way, and it epitomises the film.
It was horrible. Horrible. But driving fast behind the ambulance was fantastic.
I think it's important that Hugh wanted to play the character that we wanted him to play, and actually, Hugh is, I think, every bit as withdrawn and morally suspect as the character that he played, and I'm not sure he denied himself. He's much less like the kind of bumptious, lovable, snuffling guy that you see in Four Weddings and a Funeral or Notting Hill. So I think he was ready to play a character who was a little closer to the bone.
I like any strong story set in Britain, really. I find that the older I get, the more I want to work here for all kinds of reasons. And I thought it had offered the possibility of breaking my mould a little bit. You know, I'd sort of just done it to a certain extent in Bridget Jones's Diary. in one way, you know, going bastard. And in this, I thought to go shallow and trendy would be novel for me.
He is very focused and very serious about what he does. He's a very committed, serious actor, and he has great chemistry with women. He was wonderful to play opposite.
He's constantly honing how he's going to deliver lines and rewriting stuff as well, just so that it is perfect and kind of just right.
It's a habit I've developed over the last, well, always really, but it's got worse over the last few films, which is to just try new stuff when the camera's rolling. And it's really through an inadequacy of mine as an actor, which is that I'm fine in rehearsal saying the lines as written. It feels quite fresh and spontaneous. But as soon as the camera turns, I think it always comes out from me rather stale. And it's just part of trying to reinvent it. It's just sort of making it up again as you go along.
He was good to work with, actually, yeah. It's kind of hard to keep up with sometimes, especially at first, because he improvises quite a lot. So it just suddenly adds on a bit to the scene or changes stuff around, and that's quite hard sometimes, but you get used to that, which is, I think I learned quite a lot of that over the 3 months or something.
For us, I think, for me at least, it gets a little boring unless there's a bit of improvisation in the film. We like to get what's in the script, but then we like to go up to an actor and say, why don't you try this or try an improvisation in this direction. One cool thing about Nicholas is he was totally game for it. He could actually, even when we were auditioning him, if we went off book, he would respond as the character, and that's a huge help.
I think you look cool.
Yeah.
That's it, you got the walk. That's really cool. Brilliant. High five. Yeah.
It was important that they click in a specific way, which is a very eccentric way. He didn't want them to be too palsy with each other. So, gosh, how did they work with each other? I'm not sure they did. I think Hugh is frightened of children, and children are frightened of Hugh, frankly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, kids acting, I don't know. I've never really done it before, and didn't know what to expect. I'm not a natural kid person, you know. Some people are. They love them. They see a kid, they run over, they twirl them around their head, play with their train set, whatever. I'm not that guy. But you know, we just took great trouble to find a kid that wouldn't annoy me.
We found Nicholas, who had only done a couple of little TV things, and it was really kind of a gut-churning risk to take, because you knew that you were placing the responsibility for half of the movie on the shoulders of someone who not only was 11 years old, but hadn't done this kind of work before.
This is for my mum.
Nicholas is, you know, he's a freak. He's so focused and grown up about it, and knows his lines, and has immaculate instincts, which is lovely. It's not something you always find in grown-up actors.
I felt like I learned a lot from working with him, because he hadn't learned all the kind of acting tricks that grown-ups do. He's just like a pure, instinctive performer. So there's nothing better than that.
I love working with kids because I think that they have what every actor wants, which is just an ability to be in the moment. They haven't developed this incredible brick wall of neuroses that most actors find so difficult to jump over, you know. So it's nice to be around that kind of sense of freedom in terms of acting.
I'm not talking about this with you. Just go.
Okay, but I'll be back.
Ooh, I'm really scared. I think the Weitz brothers, you know, comedy is their first instinct, and I'm a tart for a laugh. And funny enough, I've now found that Toni Collette is too. And so everyone's sort of pulling in that direction, and I just hope we don't pull too far and that thing's still as sad and as resonant as it should be.
It's not this candy-coated comedy. It deals with some really serious subject matters, and it does so quite gracefully, and it creates really poignant and moving moments and a lot of depth, which I think makes you appreciate the humour of it even more.
I think all good comedy is based in sadness in a funny kind of way. If you've got that core there, the funniness is usually funnier, and I think in this film there's a lot of sadness, particularly in the boy's life, and the comedy plays all the stronger against that.
I know the difference between kids who can't settle down and kids who are just plain miserable. Look at him, for Christ's sake. Don't accuse me of being melodramatic. This coming from a woman who tried to...
Cowabunga!
What's the matter with you?
Nothing. Just felt like a shout.
Jesus, what a family.
The whole movie, when you set out to make it, is a bit of a balancing act between humor and pathos, and if you go too far in one direction, you lose your balance completely.
You're absolutely on a knife edge. It's not man falls into room, takes his trousers down, slips on a banana skin, farts, which are all hilarious. by the way, and that's my favourite kind of comedy. No, but it's it's light, delicate stuff, and if you're on that knife edge of tone, it can quite freak you out.
But I think that idea that you can switch from sort of rather depressed empathy to laughter is an attractive one for a cinema audience, because contemporary films especially tend to take very much one tone. We've not become very good at switching moods like that, and I think it would be a terrible thing to lose from the cinema.